Good morning.
Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Excellent. How you doing today?
Doing fantastic, doing fantastic. How's your week going?
Well, pretty good, I guess. Yeah, well, yeah, pretty good. How's your week?
Good, likewise, likewise.
You look
Yeah,
in great spirits today. What's happening?
cool. Thank you, thank you. No, kind of a big shift. I think over like the weekend is the thoughts are not like me, quote unquote mean anymore. Or like negative, but kind of discovered a few things. I've been journaling a lot more, which is really nice. And that's one thing that I want to kind of ask you about kind of going forward. But it, I mean, like yesterday, I didn't have any like negative thoughts, right? But what I realized that it's, so I started kind of looking at the lessons and like the triggers, and that really kind of stood out for me, quite a bit. And it's kind of funny. Like I saw a pattern in my thoughts. Like it's like it was trying to tell me, like, well, tell me what to do. Like, give me the plan, give me the steps, because
Sure.
it's confused. The analogy of the kind of like the horse. Like you can't just jump on the horse and expect it to take you somewhere. But it's really looking for guidance, which I kind of knew it in the past, but this is kind of it's deeper, because now I can really kind of understand it. So that's super exciting. So it's now I see it that it's not really against me, but it's really for me, right?
Yes, sir.
Um, which
Everything
is
has it for us.
which is pretty cool, which is pretty cool. But one thing I noticed, and including today, it's like, because every once in a while I still get the feelings, and now I kind of try to dig a little deeper of where, like, what's a thought before it.
Mhm.
And it kind of comes down to like comparing. I guess I tend to compare myself a lot,
Okay.
without even thinking about it. Like for instance, like we're in Florida, so I'm working today because I have calls today, and then my parent or my wife and my son are gonna go out probably to the park, and then I felt like this feeling, right? And then the train of thought, I'm like, okay, what's behind it? Like I get a little anxiety. And again, I was comparing my situation with them. It's like they're going, I'm working, but I want to be there. So that was pretty huge. So again, it goes back to that comparison, which kind of want to get your thoughts on that too, because I never realized that like I'm comparing myself that much.
Right. So,
So
what is it that you're looking for as far as a response from me? Because I'm thinking that's absolutely perfect that this is happening.
yeah,
Um,
no, I'm okay.
yeah, go ahead.
No, 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 yeah. So that's so I don't know if it's like a big aha moment for me, but it feels like it is because I realize like even if I jump on social media, um, and I see something and then I get that feeling, right? It's like the weird thing, like, and then I realize, holy shit, like I'm comparing myself on something that I'm not doing, and then by the time I get the feeling, then obviously, then it's like like we talked about, then it's the behavior, then it freezes you, and then and go back. No, so it's actually big. So I guess the question is that kind of typical, I guess.
Well, yeah. You mean the change that you've just now found that you're discovering?
Yeah,
Absolutely. This is exactly typical. And that's what I meant by this is unleashing your mind, your brain, right? This is letting you see everything for what it really is
yeah,
so that you can understand yourself. That's what this whole program is about, is so that you can understand yourself. And that's exactly what's happening. You are now being put in the position where you can see exactly why you're thinking the way you think and how it's sabotaging you. And now I'm sure in that time, you also got how to change it, right? It wasn't just I'm sabotaging myself. You also went to pivot. How do I pivot from here? Didn't you? Which is not something
yeah.
you used to do before. So this is your brain now. You've gone past the stump. You're over the hill and you're on the good side now of all this hypnosis stuff. So that's really brilliant. And I'm really proud of you right now that this is happening. Yeah.
Cool, good. No, yeah, thank you for that. And then, so to continue forward, so I see, because I used to journal before, and so like, and until I started really tracking my thoughts, like the triggers, the lessons, the response, and the thought. But it's never been to that, I guess, with no intention. I mean, is that something I probably just got to continue doing, right? Just continue journaling. I mean, is that really one of the best ways to kind of maintain it and to dig even more,
For
into
now, yeah,
controlling?
until it becomes a habit. So I used to have to journal it all the time. Now the thoughts immediately come to my head. I don't need to write it down. I could just sit back, meditate on it, and I'll know exactly, right? It'll come that way. So like the hypnosis, anything done in repetition is going to become easier and easier. Your brain's just going to run with it eventually. So right now it's work. Later it won't be. It's just like when I was telling you about how I have to think about my third thought, you
Yeah.
know, I usually don't have to, you won't notice that I'm doing that, when I'm talking, although I am doing that, I still think about my third thought before I open my mouth, right? But 3 years ago when I started that, you would visually see me pausing for 10 seconds to try to gain the thought, right? So now it's a simple flow. It just moved with it. And now I trust myself more. And that's the idea, is where you're building trust in the new you here, because now you're letting go of that past version, the past version that you now see as flawed. You're now understanding what the flaws were. And now you get to jump into that new you. And this is going to take a minute to get comfortable in the new suit that you're wearing, and to feel good about it and all that stuff. Yeah.
So then, okay, so you bring up a good point. So like for you, it's like the third thought. For me, is the comparison that the old me will do, right? Is that right?
Same.
Because it's unique to me,
Yeah.
right? Or yeah.
Yeah, it's the same idea. We both have that same thing. So you have to train yourself out of it at this point. But because the hypnosis is working for you, it's allowing you to see now when the triggers are happening. You're now understanding everything about the whole process in which your brain is bringing you through, right? And that's the whole lesson here. It's not that the hypnosis itself is going to change everything for you, because if you were to notice this stuff and not pivot, not start making your changes, your hypnosis won't work. It would just bring you back to where you were, because that's what you're telling it. But because today you are journaling, because today you are making notes, you are noticing the changes, you are trying to pivot, actively pivot, your brain is actively going there with you. And it will give you more reasons and more opportunities to make these changes the more you are aware of it, the more you're pivoting with it. If you were to ignore it, what would happen is it would hit you harder, and then bad things would start happening around you, so that you can understand what your brain pattern is doing. So it would happen more often. You would start to become that jealous. You'd get those emotions more often. It would get heavier until you finally realize what's going on. But because you already realize it, now it's going to start to dissipate, because now you're pivoting, you're changing. So that's how your brain's going to be working with it.
So then, okay, so essentially, so if you ignore it, it's obviously it's going to get worse. Like I said, that's where it just kind of I might become jealous of like like I got to work and my wife's going to go have fun and then blah 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 blah, right? I mean that's kind of
And
where
in
it's
that,
like a domino.
yeah. And in that moment when you're feeling that jealousy and you're realizing your wife's going to have fun, but you have to work, what are you saying to yourself? Oh, like, poor me, poor me. Or is it, I get to work so that my wife can take these days off to go and have fun with my child. I get to do that so I can do that for them. I get to do this so that I can take a week-long
Mhm.
vacation later on with them. Maybe I can't go today, but you know what? I could take him to Mexico. I could take him to Bora Bora because I worked today, right? You have to realize that just because today you're getting that FOMO, like missing out on. Is that
Mhm.
FOMO? Fear of missing out? Yeah. Just because you're getting the FOMO, right? Doesn't mean that that's what you're supposed to be feeling. That's just your brain saying, I want to have fun. I want to do this, right? But remind yourself that the what you're doing today is going to benefit you tomorrow, more so tomorrow, right?
Yeah, yeah, but so something I realized too was, and it's kind of a big aha moment too. Like, so like whatever I'm doing today is for myself tomorrow, and then
Yeah,
and really like the only thing I should be comparing myself with myself yesterday to see how I've improved.
you
And
betcha.
that was a big one. That kind of hit me. I mean, I bought a book and I read something, and of course, we find what we're looking for, and then it hit me yesterday, and I journaled about it. I'm like, so what the hell? Like, there's no reason to compare myself because I'm unique for one, but it's really I'm only improving myself from yesterday. So that's a big one that I actually consciously wrote about it. I think I'll have to continue that process, but I think that's where that comparison I'll kind of dig into a little bit more and then get it where it's consistent. But yeah, so thank you for that because you reminded me that's a different way to look at it. Like I get to do this for something in the future. Yeah.
That's how we have to look at everything in our lives. It's like I have to go to work. I have to make dinner. No, I get
Mhm.
to do this. I have the privilege. I have the money to buy the food. I get to eat today. I get to have my meal. I get to cook it. I get to go to work and a job I like, or I get to go to work and make a living and support myself. I get to do this. Not everybody in the world gets to do this, but I get to do it, right? I do. I have a privilege. I get this, right?
Yeah.
This is our life. We get to do everything we get to do. That's why we have to change our vocabulary about the stuff we're doing throughout the day. Because when we're saying to ourselves, oh, I have to stay home and work while they get to go play. Well, no, you don't have to do it. You can choose. You could choose to go out. But what happens if you choose to go out, right? Then they don't get to have the next week or 2 weeks from now, they don't get to have that playtime because now you don't have the money for it. And now everybody's got to work a little bit harder, blah, 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 because you can take that day, right? You get to do it. You get to take care of your family. You get to. This is your privilege. Everything in life is a privilege to us. And we have to be grateful for everything. And that's why I suggest to all my clients that they do keep charts. They keep books of the gratitude book, as well as a book of what you accomplished that day. And it's for this exact reason, so that on days like this, when your family's going out and having fun, you get to look at that book and go, okay, look at everything I've accomplished. Look where I'm heading. And I wouldn't have been able to do this if I didn't get this opportunity, right? This is for me now. And that's what these books are for, is to remind you everything you're doing and accomplishing today that you didn't do, because you are competing against you yesterday. And if you had that book in front of you to show you all of your accomplishments, you'd be like, well, look at me today. Look at everything I've done. This is not what me a year ago had, but this is what me today has. And you have it all in front of you in that book. That's why we urge people to do that, because for the hard days, when it does get a little bit, your brain is rolling into the poor me stuff, you can go back to that book and say, okay, look, I am grateful for all of these things. Yesterday, I just posted a lot of stuff about gratefulness and about manifesting and about changing your life. And it's about living in the role, believing you are. And that's where you're starting to step into, is believing that's you, because now you're understanding the part of you that was holding you back, that was lying to you. Now you're seeing that part. You're seeing that as that friend, where you're just realizing that friend has been holding you back their whole life. And that's not actually a friend. That's just a party buddy, right? That party buddy's got to go. He's served his time. It's time he goes now. But now you're solely realizing that. This is the catalyst in this moment here, where you have to decide, do I let go of my party buddy, or do I hang on to him and let him keep poisoning my world? These are your choices.
So then to make that decision, so I think with those two new things that you mentioned, like the being grateful, so that's another thing that I don't notice too. It's but you brought into like bigger context, and then the accomplish this. I'm gonna have to work on that. You kind of continue forward, so I can kind of measure myself from yesterday. But
Well,
so to let go ahead.
Yeah, but like, make sure you write down even the stuff like you did today. You just had some aha moments. These are accomplishments. The stuff you just told me on this call today, this is all accomplishments for you. You've realized something new about yourself today, which means you've grown a step. You've grown. Write that in your accomplishments book. It's not just about work. It's about your realizations. It's about your personal growth. It's about all of these things. You need to write that down so you can see that, yes, you are growing. You know what? Today, I didn't get mad. Today, when somebody came at me with a huge issue, instead I sat calmly. I rolled over the decisions, and it came out naturally. And I'm very proud of myself. Whereas, 3 weeks ago, I would have shouted at this person, or I would have gotten anxiety riddled inside, and it would have ruined my whole day. But today, that didn't happen. This is the stuff you got to write down, right? These minute little changes, so you can remind yourself, I did grow. Yeah, today is exceptionally frustrating. I may have, gotten so angry and frustrated inside, but you know what? I didn't blow my top today. Yay, I didn't blow my top. This is a big step. This is huge, and I had to pay attention to a lot of that stuff, because I did have, when I was starting out, I had a lot of anger issues. And when you're trying to get rid of anger issues, it's slow. It's slow, and because we're accustomed to blowing up at everything. And I used to, like, my days were spent in stress, just angry all the time. And so every single day I had to write down just how proud I am of myself for this little change that I did. Today, I didn't feel like punching somebody out. Today, I didn't, aggressively shout at somebody. Today, I didn't call somebody a name. I'm super proud of myself today. That was 3 years ago. Now I look at that, I'm like, wow, big steps. Because I look at that, I'm like, that's ridiculous. Like as if you have to write that down, right? I'm looking at that now. But me 3 years ago, I needed to just be proud of that I didn't call you an asshole today. I'm super proud of myself for that, right? But 3 years down the road, I look back, I'm like, wow, look how much I've grown. If I hadn't written it all down, I wouldn't have realized how much I've actually grown. I would have just stayed in that frustration of that moment thinking, oh, everything had just been dragged back. It's just all for nothing. Well, no, I'm just having a frustrating moment in this moment. But did you see how much I've grown? How much my reactions have changed? How much everything about myself has changed? Did you see how I was only angry for 5 minutes and now I'm super happy and finding pivots and figuring out how to challenge myself? Do you see that? Yeah, okay, because I've changed, right? And this is what you have to realize about yourself, inch by inch, day by day, week by week, month by month, you change. And so even when our 3 weeks or in our month are over, you're not done. You're not done at all.
Right.
Your brain is still going to keep pivoting. As long as you keep making these realizations, as long as you keep pivoting with it, this is going to work. Like I'm 3 years out from my anger session. I only had one anger session, only one. And like I was like bitterly angry. Like if my day wasn't made unless I made other people's day wrong, right? Like that was the girl I was. And I'm 3 years out from that, and I'm still noticing pivoting. I'm still noticing changes and growth in myself, and I'm still patting myself on the back for proud moments, right? Because I'm getting into new situations every day and I'm still growing. And that's 3 years later. Whereas other people would be like, oh, I'm not, because they go back into that anger, they feed it, they like it. They're not observant of the change. And so they don't realize that when they get into that angry situation, when they get into that moment, they think, well, nothing's changed. I'm still that bitter person. Well, no, you're not. You've grown a lot. You're just not realizing it because you didn't note it down. You're not patting yourself on the back. You're not celebrating those small events. And so how can you remember them in that moment?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. No, yeah, and I think, and then so question on that. So when you do kind of record like those moments, because I guess it like in my mind, like I'm trying to think like how to ask the question, like you can't really measure that. I mean, you can't put like a 10 points, 20 points, 100 points, but it's more of a, is it like talking to and I guess this is where it comes like journaling, and it might be different for everybody, and I guess you can tell me like, so when you record a moment like that, is it like I'm recording as my like, this is where it kind of gets tricky though, because now I'm seeing like my old party buddy wasn't myself, and maybe this is my brain trying to, and like this is me. Do I journal as like me, or like, like an observer, or like, I guess so. Like, how do I record a win like that? Because I don't think I have recorded a win like that. I've just kind of recorded like what I'm observing, right?
Mhm.
So my question is, how do you record that?
Yeah, when I record it, it's all about it's the me. I won, I did this, I accomplished. Because when I go back, I want to read it as such. I did this today. I did it, right? Because that's where we're going to feed our ego later on with all of our beautiful accomplishments. Because guess what? Throughout life, we're still going to have a freaking ego. You just need to train your ego to go with the right things. And that's what you're doing with these kind of books, right? When you're writing about the accomplishment, how you've grown, how you've changed, it's I did this. So that when you're reading back, it goes to your ego, and your ego realizes it's growing and this is what you want. I accomplished this today. I did this. That's how I write. I don't write it in a third person. I don't write it in the way of, this was a change today. That was good. I've noticed it. No, today I did this. Today I grew by doing this. I did it, because that's putting back your ego into the positive frame instead of that negative ego that you've been feeding our whole life. Right. And of course, with you, there's going to be a different issue because both you're a male and you're a businessman. And so you have strategies that you put into place, and it has to work. And that's the way business is. And that's the way men are. You give me a task, I'll complete the task. I'll do A, B, C, and the task will get done. Your brain doesn't work that way. Your brain is not quite like that. But it's very much like the woman at home who needs to be reassured all the time with the positive stuff. If you feed, let's say you had a housewife at home And whenever you went home, you only fed her with negative stuff. And, why isn't this house cleaned? Why isn't the dinner on the table at 5 o'clock when I got home? Why are the kids shouting and dirty? Why? If you were that guy to her, what do you think her response? She's not going to want to make love to you that night. She's not going to be nice to you. She's probably going to spit in your food, But if you go home with flowers to your wife once a week and beautiful comments and loving things, and you say nice things to her, she flowers, she grows with you, right? That's the idea of the journal, is to be kind and to see that you're being kind and to see where you're growing. If you go home and you tell your wife, boy, I love what you did with that. It looks so great, honey. I'm so proud of you. This dinner, it's like the best pork chop I've ever had. I'm like, thank you so much. She's going to feel so great. And then she's going to work extra hard now to do things for you to make your day even better because you made her feel better. It's a win-win. That's the same with your journaling. When you're journaling, you don't want to write down all the stuff that broke you down, because that's not going to help you later. That's just going to break you down more, right? You're just going to be that broken housewife. You want to write down the stuff that you're proud of. I did this. Look I cleaned the house and I did great. And he commented on it. Boom. You want to write down the stuff you're proud of so that later when you're looking back at it, you get that good feeling inside, just like that good housewife. And it's the same with plants, right? If you're talking negative to a plant, the plant dies. If you talk positive to the plant grows. They've done studies on this. It's a fact. Same with music. If you're playing that rah, heavy metal, the plant doesn't grow. If you play Mozart, the plant grows. It's the same thing with your brain. You have to feed it the positive, happy, loving stuff, not the negative stuff. That's why we write the books of the journaling of the, what we're grateful for, of what we've accomplished, of all of those things, because that's what we need to feed our brain, is that positive stuff, right? That's why.
Okay. All right. I had a lot of aha moments while you were saying all this stuff. So
saw your brain going popping.
yeah. So because that was one of my other questions. Okay. So like I've noticed a pattern myself, like I could work for a year, 2 years or whatever. Like I'll build something and I'll be successful, and then something, like I guess you call it burnout, or I don't know what they call it, but so then kind of what you were saying is like, and I never really realized that, like the man or the businesswoman, like we are very task oriented. Let's just get the work done and let's just get it done. Like it's almost easier not to have a family, not to have a wife, not to have a child, because then I can just do it, right? And I've done it before. I just zone everything out and then just do it. But now I have a 4-year-old son, and then I have a wife. But I guess that, comparing it with the mind, I never thought about it. So then, and I'm just kind of talking a lot, and you can kind of give me your feedback. So, because right now I am trying to find that motivation, and I'm trying to, like, I even journal, like, okay, so like, who do I want to become? Like, how do I motivate myself? But I guess it goes back to being kind to my brain, and my brain is going to find the motivation, right? I mean, that's my let's go, let's get this done, because
Well, it's
and yeah.
yeah, it's a two-parter here, because listen, you want to have the fun of what you've accomplished, right? You still want the prize. And that's where I'm urging you now to actually schedule in that fun time with your family. So yeah, you can't go to the park today, but you scheduled Friday at 2 p.m. You're going to go for 3 hours with them and do something. You have to schedule those times into your busy schedule. I actually made a video on Friday just about all of this stuff, about that was my Friday live, about making time for self-care. And as a business person, and you just mentioned that, you jump all in, you put your blinders on, and you go, go, go. I do the same thing, and I forget to just wax my legs for like a month. It's horrifying. So you know what I mean? We can't do that. It's not stuff you can do. What we have to do is we have to schedule in self-care at this point. And for you, your self-care that you need is the stuff you're starting to notice that you're getting that anxiety feeling and you're missing, like when your kid and your wife are going out. That's your self-care. Clearly, that's what your soul needs. It needs that nourishment of love, of family time, of that fun. That's what your soul's needing. Schedule it for you, because you have to nourish you. If you don't nourish you, you get the burnout. And then when you get the burnout, everything goes bad, right? And we don't want that burnout. If you don't schedule that self-care time, then you're messed up. My self-care time for me, I have to actually get away from the computer, get away from everyone and dance. That's my thing. I'm like, because I used to be a ballroom Latin dancer competition in my youth before I got
Yeah.
sick. And so that to me that's where I go for joy. That's where my brain goes. When I hear the music and I close my eyes and I just start moving in it, I'm in my bliss. But I don't get to do that all the time. I used to dance 4 to 8 hours a day, every single day, because that's when you're competing, that's what you have to do. And now I get maybe 10 to 15 minutes a day, right? But do you see what I see? I get 15 minutes. I don't have to do it. I get to do it. This is my privilege. So now that's where my self-care is. I'm scheduling it in my time, 6 p.m. every single day. I get up and dance for 15 minutes at 6 p.m. every day. That's what I scheduled in my book because that's what I need for my self-care. And I have to go for a walk with my dogs. Not because my dogs need to go for a walk. I can leave them sit in the yard for a few days. I need the walk because I notice if I don't go for these self-care walks every single day, I feel lethargic. My brain feels scattered. I don't feel clear. You know what I mean? Like we all need certain things for our self-care. That's what you need to start doing is scheduling that stuff in for yourself, making sure it's on there, including your family time. Schedule it if you have to. And that doesn't mean that, the schedule's going to get mixed up here and there. We can't get frustrated with that. You can add things, take things out. But you have to make sure every week that you do get that quality time with your family to go and do something that you may have been missing. So let's say today they went out and did something fabulous. In your mind, you can't go today because you have to work, but you can plan something for Sunday. And right now you can say, okay, I can't go today, but you know what? On Sunday, here's what we're going to do, A, B, C, and D, and we're going to have some fun. Now you've scheduled that. You've planned your plan in for Sunday. And now you're not missing today as much because now you're looking forward to Sunday. Sunday's coming and we get to do this together, right? You've planned it. And it's a celebration, just like anytime you've accomplished anything. I don't know if you've done this with your work, but anytime I accomplish anything, small, big, yesterday I finished my freaking landing page for my sales funnel. So I went out and I celebrated. I had some fun.
Yeah.
That's what we have to do. I could have just said, okay, project done, click on to the next option and start something else. Fuck no, that's not what I did. I went out and I had a couple of drinks with some friends. Why? Because it was time to relax. I had just done something really great. Time to celebrate. That's what you also have to do for yourself is to pat yourself on the back and do those minor celebrations. Get yourself a minor gift, depending on what gifts are for you. Sometimes the gift is just going home and kissing your wife and getting a hug. Sometimes the gift might be buying yourself a decadent piece of chocolate. Sometimes the gift is going to the gym and working out. Whatever the gift is for you, gift yourself something for your successes because otherwise you're going to burn out. When you jump from one project to the other without that little celebration in between, without recognizing how great you are, without recognizing how much you've moved forward, then you do burn out because then you go to that mindset of nothing's enough. I'm not getting it done fast enough. There's so much more to do. You're stuck in that role instead of, you know what? I just did a great win and I'm going to make another one next week and I'm going to do this when I celebrate. And then next week of that, I'm going to get another win. That's a different state of mind, right? Because now I'm in the winner's state of mind. You've already won even before you started your day because you've already planned how to celebrate your successes. You've already won. But if you're sitting there never celebrating those successes, then you're going day to day. Oh, I've got more work to do. That one did, but I didn't feel anything great from it. And what I've learned about men, especially, women are a bit different, but men, when they're task oriented, they want results at the very end. I do the task, I want the result, and I better feel good about it. That's what they want, and they always want. Men are oriented in the way of they want that good feeling, that happy feeling. That's what they're looking for. That fun. They always want to have fun. Like when you go to start in a dating relationship, and I shouldn't say men only because women are now like this. We're very much like men now, but 20 years ago, men. But people today, when you go into a dating situation, it's the same kind of idea. You're going in with the mindset that I want to have fun. A lot of people start running the second they start hearing you talk about your problems and all of this stuff because it's all heavy. Well, that's the same thing you want to do with your work, right? With your life. If you bring into your life every day and you make it all serious and you're only talking about the issues and the problems and the heaviness and the kids need this and the washing machine broke, blah, 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 and that's all your life is, Well, guess what? Who's going to be miserable all day, every day, right? You can't go through life like that. You have to come back and celebrate with yourself every day. And that's why those types of relationships that couples still continue to date, they go on dates even 20 years after being married. They still pick each other up for date night and go out. They still celebrate those small wins. They take time to talk about their issues most of their day. Like they schedule an hour out of their day to talk about their issues. My parents would, you know, after work, they would take a half an hour, they'd go to the bedroom and they'd talk about their day. And then the rest of the time, it was about having a good time together and just living life, right? It wasn't about talking about the problems all freaking day. No, you get home, you get it out, it's done. Let's celebrate. Let's keep going with our day. That's what you have to do with yourself. Make sure you celebrate your wins so that you can move forward with that happy feeling so you're not feeling that heaviness, dragging yourself back. You don't want to be the dud in the relationship. You know, you don't want to be the one dragging yourself back. And you're in a relationship with yourself in this moment, right? This is
Right.
successful you and past you, right? The past you is the housewife who's not getting any love, anything, and feeling neglected and whatever. She's the one who's going to drag you back, right? You got to
Yeah.
go forward.
Okay. Shit. Okay. Yeah, no, it's a big one because damn, I feel like my old self, my old housewife, like that's always been not always, like in the past, I've always just taken that, damn, shit. I'm almost hard, like I can't even put it into words because it's like I see it, like it's and it's more like my safety is the it's a driver, it's no emotions, just like just talk about
That's it.
especially like when I was recording my own thoughts. But I still got to feed that, or I don't got to feed that. Is I have to be kind to myself, and people have told me that in the past. Is like just be kind to yourself. But that's what it is, right? It's like it's that balance of me working. So then, does that explain then? Shit, yeah. I mean, it's that work, and I guess it was easier when you were young. I don't know. I kind of realized that, like like it was easier back then because you didn't have I don't know whatever. But now it's like you really have to nurture that other side of me, right? Like that housewife. I guess we'll call it a housewife. It's kind of weird to say it, but it's like the brain. But then, so that's the brain, like that's, or is that my old self? Or I mean, it's just a part of me, right? I mean, that's what
It's just a part of you. And
yeah.
it's not that that housewife can't turn into, the perfect housewife, the perfect wife. But right now, that housewife is just being worked to like a dog and not being celebrated at all, right? And that's what you can't do. You have to celebrate her, him. In your case, you have
Right,
to
yeah.
celebrate him, right?
Well,
He has to know that he's done something well. He has to know that he's gotten some successes. He has to be nurtured. He has to see that. And if you tell him every single day that he sucks and that his pork chops are dry, well, he'll spit on them next time so that your pork chops are a little bit more moist, right? But it's not going to be a damn good pork chop. Nothing will improve. The only way it improves is if you tell him, you know what, honey, this was really great. You did good today. You did really good. I'm really proud of you. This is what you did great. Here's where we can grow. Here's what we can do to grow. Yeah. Yeah, I could see where there's still growth. But you know what? Here's what you did really good today. That's why we write down the accomplishments. That's
mm,
why we see where we have to grow still. When you write down what you're grateful for first thing in the morning, you walk into the world fully grateful. You start your day that way.
mm,
If at the end of the day you're writing down everything you've accomplished throughout that day, everything that you were successful about, now you go to sleep thinking, I'm a success. I've done it,
mm.
right? And then you go through your days like that. You start your day grateful for everything in the world. You end your day, I'm a success. I've done well. How can your brain go wrong when you're nurturing it like that?
Right. And I guess here I dropped my pen to come and say.
Go for it.
So then, so I've done like okay. So one thing I want to ask you before it's up is the being grateful part because I mean I've like I've had grateful journals and all that, but I guess it's kind of weird. I guess it's one thing to do it, but another one is that it's actually for. I'm still formulating the words because my brain is still trying to process this.
That's
Like
okay.
it's I mean it's fuck. Like it's for me. Yeah, and I guess you know what I think this conversation's like it's giving me that old self and my new self, like the separation. I think that's what my brain can't,
Yeah,
or not yet anyway.
you're discombobulated right now.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, so I wake up and I say I'm grateful normally, but it's like, I don't know if it's gone anywhere because the intention wasn't directed towards
Yeah. And
feeding my housewife, whatever I figured to call her, right? My old self, whatever that is. But that's really the motivation, right? Because as we know, like, I mean, women are the motivation in the household, the majority, right? So I have to understand that for myself as well, right? Like that's the part of me that's going to motivate me, that's going to get me like, it's not just work, because then I think what I've noticed a pattern with me, it's like, okay, I'll work, but then I'm like kind to myself, I don't recognize it, right? And then that way, then I get up in the morning, then I look at and it happened today, I looked at my schedule, I'm like, fuck. And then I kind of journal, I'm like, well, why did I think that? And I think it was just like, well, what's the point, kind of, you know what I mean? Like, you're gonna work, but I never thought, well, it'll give me you know, I didn't talk to it to say I get to do this because tomorrow, I don't get to work, right? I'm only working a day or 2 days a week when
yeah,
so I need to talk to that side of it. I think that's what I'm realizing. That I
nurture it. Yeah. Talk to it with love. Talk to it
yeah.
with your talk to it the way you would your wife at home, the way you would your child. You wouldn't shout at
um,
your child for, a failure. You would try to nurture your child to help it to grow, right? You would try to help them to learn. We hope.
no, and I'm laughing because as you said, I have a 4-year-old, mind you,
Yes.
and so it's like that shit doesn't work. Like you can't, like it just, and I'm learning as a parent, like you can't just tell them no, it's just like
Yeah.
you. So is it wasn't it like the biggest realizations like now that I have to deal with the two parts, right? Essentially, especially in the beginning,
Yeah.
like yeah,
Yep.
my new self. Okay.
Not only that, but you have to realize that when you're not nourishing your baby you're actually letting down the child that's actually in your house now as well, because they're watching you, right? And if they see daddy always working, work, 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 never celebrate, never have fun, that's what they're going to learn. And they're going to learn to be hard on themselves. They're going to learn to be stressed out. And is that what you want to teach your kid? You are the catalyst. But the other thing you have to remember is that that child was brought into your life to teach you things. I'm a firm believer that we have children, in my case, dogs, because I never had children, so I got a dog. But they come into your life to teach you where you're inadequate in your own personality, where you need to grow, right? And by that, I mean, what is
Yeah.
stressing you out most about that child is where you need to work on as a human being. So for me, my dog, we would go for walks and she would take off for 4 hours and I'd have to find her literally 4 hours trying to find this damn dog. And it was like a daily thing for the first year. And it was so frustrating and I'd get so mad. And then I realized the dog was leaving because I was already mad. I was already angry. I was already shouting at her on this walk, get over here, don't do that, blah, blah, blah. So she fucked up. She's like, I'll just leave him when I'm done. I'll come back. Until I learned to calm my personality, to calm my temper, to become kind to her, she wouldn't listen. Now I've got a perfect dog because I've changed me. The dog is doing well. That's what we have to learn about these children. Children, people, humans, everything is brought into our lives to help us to grow. What's triggering you is what you need to work on for you. It's not what's wrong with that person, it's what's wrong with you, right? So that's what you have to grow with. So, yeah, this is the same thing with the partners we're choosing. Whatever is usually triggering us is what we need to work on. What you don't like in someone else is technically what's bothering you about you.
Yeah. And then that's when you just go into the self-reflection and really kind of okay.
Yeah.
So shit. All right. Yeah,
You're doing a great job.
I'm still freaking out. I'm like, fuck, because I see like the pattern, and it's and you're right though. I mean, I have two, like my like yeah, shit.
But you're seeing the pattern now, and that's brilliant. It's opened up to you now. You can see it, and now you have the choice. Either I pivot, I change, and I move forward and I become the best version of myself that I could possibly become, or I stick with the pattern because it rocks. Which one do you want to do?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
it's crazy. Yeah. Fuck. Okay. Go ahead.
that's okay. I was just gonna say, I think we've already decided that it doesn't rock. It might have helped for a minute, but it's in the long run, it's holding you back.
Yeah, totally, totally. Again, I think it's looking for the nurturing. And it's like that. So does that kind of go back to like, well, people say like find your why, but it's that self-nurturing, right? It's like, we're doing this for something, positive, right? It's not just work, but I mean, it's, like, I mean, is that the basis of it, you think?
I'm not understanding that question.
So like, so let's say we get up this morning to go work, but like to understand why we're doing it and not just surface level, but like why? Like for in my case, it's like to, have something for my son or like, like to provide for my family, but also for myself, right? I mean, it's that why that kind of feeds that emotional side or that housewife in me, right? I mean, it's that motivation. I mean, am I understanding it right? Is that like the work and the why, right? It's like, so I can do all my calls today, but then if I get anxiety over it, and it's really to understand why I'm doing it, and that's being kind to myself because I'm telling that like I said, like like I can schedule something that I'll do with my family instead of feeling like I'm missing out. And I'm still processing it, as you can tell, because I'm like, what the fuck? It's like it's kind of interesting, and I guess it'll be my own way, right? Because I'll develop my own way to talk to myself nice, to motivate myself, to nurture my housewife, tell her that the pork chops are nice, like start recording all that.
Yeah.
And I guess it'll be
Only you can do that because you know what? The compliments, the all of that stuff, like you could think about all throughout your work history, all the times other people complimented you on your accomplishments and you went, ugh, I didn't do enough. That's because your self-talk is shit, right? You are the one who has to nurture you. You have to be good to your own housewife. That's you. Nobody else can do that for you. No matter what anybody else says, it's what you believe that matters. It's what you're telling yourself that matters.
yeah. It's funny because you say that. So one thing I've struggled in the past of like getting acknowledgments, but I did a bunch of coaching calls. They were like referrals, and at the end, I asked everyone to give me a feedback, compliments. And I have half a dozen or more, but they all gave me something nice, and I haven't listened to them. But you're right though, like they can say nice things about you, but it really just kind of bounce off the wall. But I have to talk to myself nice. It's not so much
Yeah, it doesn't
that.
matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Which was a huge thing for me to ask for it, which was big. So that was kind of like a task for me because I would never be able to do that in the past. But now I got to take that deeper and I have to talk. See, like I have to talk to myself. See, look, that person, like I had the privilege of, and I'm just talking about, like I had the privilege out to give her a aha moment to do this, to do that, right? Like you did great, Juan, right? Like is that like this positive self-talk, I guess?
To compliment yourself on those moments, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pat yourself on the back. You're the one trying to do it. You're the parent to yourself, that loving parent. That's you.
Yeah.
Only we could be that loving parent to ourselves.
Yeah, so one thing that kind of started me on this journey was the child adult parent kind of side of it. I mean, so that still kind of happens inside us, right? I mean, is that what cognitive behavioral therapy is kind of based on, isn't it? Like the child, yeah, yeah.
We're always going back to that child that got hurt.
Is it?
And by that, I mean, you could be 7 years old and your child is 20 years old. You're going back to that 20-year-old self. That's still that child version of you. It's the younger version of you, right? But for the most part, most of us, well, all of us, I shouldn't say most of us, all of us, every single human being on the planet develops our first personality, our first choice of who we are by the time we're 7 years old. That's when you've developed your first self. So whatever happened between 0 and 7 is going to fuck you up for the rest of your life unless you fix it. Basically, that's what happens, right? And so we have to understand that that was somebody else's limitations, because we were learning from our neighbors, our parents, the people around. We were learning other people's limitations to create our own self. So if we have lack of confidence, it's because in 0 to 7, we got knocked down in that time, and we weren't boosted up. Our confidence wasn't. We weren't showing how great we are, and now we question it. That's why. And that's why you have to fix that child. You're the one who has to be the loving parent, because clearly whatever was happening in, hang on, let's go. Dog outside.
Was he talking? Was he barking?
Yeah, that's a howl from a beagle, and she was talking to the dog that's walking by outside.
That's so awesome.
Oh, there's a beautiful, big, huge black, big, huge dog outside, and that's what they do. They talk to each other all the time. But
That's so
that's a
cool.
howl from a beagle. That's not a bark. They don't bark.
Okay.
They don't bark. Yeah. They're the loudest dogs on the planet, and if you live in an apartment, do not get a beagle. That's all I have to say. Don't get a beagle.
Okay. So then, okay. Well, no, so you were talking about like being the nurturing parent to yourself.
Yeah, you have to be.
Yeah.
And we do that actually in the session. I don't know if you remember that, but I think we've done that. We did that in your session itself. I don't know if I skipped that with you or not, because sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Depends on what you need in your session. But that's what we do directly under hypnosis, is we go back and have those people be that loving parent to themselves. So if it was their parents that was the catalyst to why they are the way they are today, we go back and we have them talk to the parent, figure out the problem, and then become the nurturing parent. Tell yourself everything you've always wanted to hear, everything that you've always wanted to hear that you never heard from someone else. Say it out loud to yourself. Be that parent to yourself. So we do that with you in the session, whereby you are sitting with that younger version of yourself, and you are talking to that younger version of yourself, saying all that stuff. But it's important. You have to nurture you. Right?
Yeah, and I think that's something that I can probably say that I have not done in the past. Like it's always been like either on or off, if that makes sense. You know, like work hard or don't work. So, and it's that, yeah, and
Okay,
it's that, but
let's look at your patterns from childhood. Who do you know who did that growing
oh,
up?
my dad.
Where'd you learn that, right? You've learned that. That was something you learned between 0 and 7. That's what you saw. And that's your idea of hard work. A good man, a good working hard man, will put his all in until he's so exhausted. Boom, boom, boom. Right? That's why you work that way. Now it's about nurturing yourself, realizing that, yes, I am a hard worker, but I can take a rest. I can have those family days.
Like my brain's freaking going crazy. I never thought about that. Like my dad's literally he's worked himself to death, like at some point, you know, like.
That's what you were taught.
And still to this day, he'll say, and I've caught that, but I never put it back to. He's like, oh, you know, working hard, you know, work like that's his thing, you know, like you know. So then shit. Okay, so I just fuck. Okay, I'm just having a lot of aha moments. My brain is like, what the fuck, like.
But in this aha moment you're seeing now, your dad was never nourished, right? Anybody who works their dog, like a dog works their ass off like that, was never nourished with love. They never got the love they needed, so they put it all into work. They thought, if I just do this, I'll be a good person. I'll be able to prove no, because you're still missing it. So they're still hollow inside. Although they're accomplishing everything they need to accomplish, they're hollow. Why? Because you weren't a loving parent to yourself. You gotta love yourself.
So that's where I need that's a big one, is that keeping those books of the gratitude and the accomplishments, the celebrations, and really starting that positive self-talk. I think that's a big one.
Read them. It's not only about just writing every day.
Yeah.
You actually have to go back and read it every day. Before you write in it again, read what you wrote the day before, or go back to a different day and read that. It's about reminding yourself every single day what you are grateful for and what you've accomplished. But it's also about writing it down, your new grateful list, your new accomplishment list. You got to add to it every day, but read it every day. Because if you're just adding to it, all you're doing is saying it out loud. You aren't reminding yourself, you aren't telling yourself all the good things you've done. You're just putting it out there. That's what is that doing? That's nothing.
Right.
You still have to nourish yourself. The nourishing, right now, you're just bringing to the food to the table by writing it down. You actually have to eat it, right? You actually have to eat it. And that means rereading it over and over, seeing that you've accomplished something and then adding to it, seeing that you are grateful, rereading that stuff, you know? And I've noticed that I have on my computer, I have my grateful list that I have. And for some freaking reason, it's the only thing that my mouse isn't working, it's the only thing that will pop up is that freaking grateful list. I'm like, why the fuck is this keep? And then finally I read it and I'm like, oh, that's why I'm supposed to be grateful right now. It's popping
Oh,
up.
that's funny. Yeah.
It's doing that. And I was realizing that it kept popping up on the days I wasn't doing my gratefulness, on the days I wasn't being grateful, where I was just frustrated and all this stuff. That gratefulness would pop right up on my screen. I'm like, what the hell? It's there because it's reminding me I'm supposed to be reading this. I'm supposed to be adding to it every single day so I can remind myself that this frustration I'm feeling right now is temporary. It wasn't here yesterday. It's not going to be here tomorrow. It's going to be just now, right? That's what I have to remind myself of. And so that's what we need. So nurture yourself and don't expect anybody else to do it. People who look for other people to save them are going to be victims their whole lives. So
Yeah.
save you. That's what hypnosis, that's what this whole thing was about, was for you to start saving you.
Is there a way to get the recording for this call today? Or
Yeah, I can send you this recording if you want.
yeah, because this one, because there's just, and I've talked a lot of those, but there's so many aha moments, like it's like nuts because it's especially like the separation part. Yeah, so I'm like seeing that, fuck, it's just like my brain is just like I can hear the neural connection just pop, 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 pop. So
That's good.
um,
That's
yeah,
two
no,
times. That means you're finally open because 3 weeks ago your brain wasn't popping like this. Today,
mm.
boom, right?
And then it's yeah, and I think that's the other thing I got to measure. I mean, it's one thing to measure your business goals, right? But it's you have to measure your personal growth, right? Like that's I see that being a huge, like in the past, a void that I've never done. Like, yeah, you can get whatever, blah, 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 material, whatever, work, but then you need to measure how much you've grown. And I guess when you do that, that's the nurturing part that feeds that other side of us, right? Like, that feeds that my housewife, right?
Yeah. And you have to remind yourself which ego are you going to grow? The loving ego or the evil ego? Which one are you growing? If you don't nurture it, the evil one grows because you're growing out of greed, you're growing out of, all of that stuff. When you nurture, you grow out of love. It's a whole different ego. And you can't get rid of ego, but you can train it to be the best version of you. To look
All
to
right.
be that best version and not the ego driven version.
Okay. So is that kind of the analogy? Like there's two wolves or whatever the story is, right? It's fuck. In coaching, you answer your own questions, but it's whatever I'm giving it to myself is what keeps growing, right? So if I keep talking to myself and beating myself up, and it's that cycle, then that negative ego, jealousy, whatever
All that
keeps
right.
growing, right?
Yeah.
So for me, look, so okay, so for me, I got to start feeding my other. Well, what? No, I have started already, but now it's that awareness. Okay.
Well, and then also remind yourself, go back and look at all your other accomplishments because you said you've done it a couple of times where you've built something up and then you burned out and boof. Why did it burn out? Because who wasn't nurturing themselves over
Yeah.
that time? And what happens when you work, 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 you burn out and then everything you worked for is gone. But if you were to nurture yourself through all that, everything you work for stays because now it's on a balanced plate. So imagine like a waiter, okay? You've got that big circle tray on your,
Mhm.
it's balanced as long as you have things in the circle differently balanced along because you have to place everything everywhere. It has to be balanced. If you put all the cups full of juice on one side, that tray is going to fall. That's what you're doing. You're putting all the cups into your business. You're not putting cups into your family, into yourself, into this, into that. It's all business all the time, right? And then they're getting the trickle. They're just getting a trickle of that. Look at everything I've done for you. I've accomplished all this. You should be happy. You should be a good family now because I've accomplished all this stuff. But where's the nurturing? The nurturing part has to happen to you, to them, to everyone. In order for that tray to stay on the palm and to be able to walk through, you have to have the full circle. Same with elastic bands. Elastic bands, when you put something on an elastic band, right, and you pull it taut, it'll stay. But if you bring it back like this, the elastic band is going to fall all the way down, right? So if I put it around, I wish I had one around me. If I put it around my hand and I just left it there, it would droop. But if I put it around my hand and I pulled it taut like this, because I'm nurturing every part of me now, and I pulled it taut, the elastic band would stay taut all the way around. The minute one of those things lessens, if I'm not nurturing myself, if I'm, doing too much in work or doing whatever, one side's going to move in and that elastic band's going to fall. You have to keep it tight everywhere, which means the balance. So I urge you to go back and watch my video from Friday, this Friday live that I did. It's on my, it's the boss. It's something about the boss person, being a boss or something like that. That video is talking all about self-care and what to do for self-care. I want you to start doing all of that stuff. Now, I know you're already starting with some of them, but I want you to do as many as you can and just really nurture yourself. Because that's where it's going to be important. You can't burn yourself out. You got a 4-year-old kid now. First of all, that's burning in itself, but you've got a 4-year-old kid. You've got to be that best version of you. And in order for them to grow to be the best version of themselves, they're watching you.
Right.
It's a little boy, so he's for sure watching you, right? So don't show him that it's all about work. You want to show him that it's a balance of love with the family, loving yourself, giving to yourself, scheduling in your self-care for where you need it, and giving yourself what you need. Your son needs to learn that if it's all work, 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 you burn. Can't burn. You got to give it everywhere. And that starts with being grateful for your life and understanding that you are accomplishing things every single day. You are a success.
Yep, and both, right? Not just like the physical things, but also the things that we don't see ourselves. I think that's my big one. Yeah. Okay, cool, perfect. No, yeah, thank you. I know we're almost up to time, so if you don't mind, I would love this recording just because I'll have to process it. But this one's a big one. And I'll watch that video. And I'm sure I'll probably reach out to you again. So. And if anything, I'll refer people to you too as well, because I like the more I work on myself, I see more in other people, right? So that's the biggest thing. So.
That's the shitty part.
That's the shitty part.
Yourself, you realize how sick everyone around you.
Yeah, totally. It's like fucking crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, cool. All right, Chris. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I'll have this sent to you the next day or so. I just have to upload it and do all that stuff.
Yeah, that's fine. No worries. No worries. All right. Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'll see you soon. Bye.